screen doors of those old houses hung crooked on their hinges in the summer heat, and through them came the eternal song of cicadas at dusk. Inside those kitchens, the air held something ancient and knowing. Onion skins browning in bacon grease, camphor oil warming in tin cups, and underneath it all, the faint metallic scent of worry that mothers and grandmothers learned to recognize. In those days, healing happened in kitchens, not in waiting rooms or hospital corridors, but in rooms where lamplight fell across worn linoleum and cast shadows on floral wallpaper that had seen generations come and go. The knowledge lived in the rhythm of hands moving without hesitation, crushing garlic against cutting boards, measuring remedies by instinct rather than teaspoon, reading fevers through the press of a wrist against a burning forehead. When children fell sick in the night, there were no phones to call, no emergency rooms with doors that opened for everyone. There was only what had always been there, the wisdom passed down through whispers and demonstrations, through watching and remembering, through necessity that became tradition, that became survival itself. The fever would come first, turning small bodies into furnaces that frightened everyone except the eldest women. They had seen this before. They had felt the rattle of struggling lungs, had watched the glaze that settled over children's eyes when sickness took hold. And they had learned, through generations of having no other choice, exactly what to do. Mason jars lined the shelves like medicine cabinets, each one holding a piece of inherited knowledge. Dark syrup made from elderberries picked in autumn, clear liquids that burned the nose but soothed the throat, dried leaves tied in bundles, their names remembered even when everything else was forgotten. Mullein for the lungs, horehound for the cough, sassafras for the blood. The remedies came from what was available, what could be grown, what could be afforded. Goose grease sat in white ceramic containers, waiting to be warmed between palms and rubbed across small chests in slow, deliberate circles. A few drops of kerosene mixed in, enough to make the mothers hold their breath, but never enough to harm. The old women's hands knew the difference. They had measured this balance countless times, in countless kitchens, saving countless children. Onions became poultices, steaming and wrapped in cheesecloth worn soft from use. They were placed behind ears, against necks, in the crooks of arms, anywhere the fever pooled and needed coaxing out, heat and intention working together, showing sickness, the door through the oldest pharmacy humanity had ever known. The talking was part of the healing too. Stories told in voices low and steady as river water, filling the room while hands worked. Stories about trees that offered bark for stomach teas, about grandmothers who had their own grandmothers, about shade cool enough to make August forget itself. The words became rhythm, became certainty, became the sound of not being alone in the dark. Honey mixed with fresh lemon juice glowed amber in the lamplight, stirred into warm water and lifted to fevered lips. Slow sips, letting it coat the throat going down. The grimace at the bite of citrus was expected, even welcomed. It meant the child was still fighting, still tasting, still here. Through those long nights, the vigils continued. Chairs pulled close to cots, hands resting on small chests to count each breath, eyes half closed but always watching. The waiting was its own kind of medicine, the steady presence that said, "You will not face this alone. You will not slip away unnoticed. You inhale." By the time the moon moved across the window and dawn began to think about arrival, the fevers would break more often than not. Skin that burned like coal would turn damp and cool. breathing that had rattled would smooth into something deeper, easier. The remedies worked not because of magic, but because generations of women had paid attention, had remembered what helped and what didn't, had refined their knowledge through trial and error and desperation. This was medicine before medicine had a name that could be written in Latin. This was healing that happened in the spaces where official care refused to go, in communities that had been denied and dismissed and told to make do. And so they did. They made do with brilliance, with observation, with love translated into goose grease and onion poultices and midnight vigils. The recipes were never written down in the way of cookbooks or pharmacy ledgers. They lived in demonstration, in the teaching moment when a grandmother pulled a daughter or granddaughter close and said, "Watch now. Watch how I do this." They lived in the muscle memory of hands that had performed these rituals so many times they could work in the dark. They lived in the collective memory of communities that knew their survival depended on remembering. When the children recovered and returned to playing in yards where chickens scratched and gardens grew, they carried within them the imprint of those kitchen healings. The smell of camphor would forever mean safety. The sight of mason jars would trigger a deep, wordless trust. The memory of hands rubbing circles on their chests would remain long after those hands had turned to dust. And in those lamplit kitchens, with their jars of remedies and their smells of garlic and grease and determination, the old ways kept breathing life into the next generation, one fevered child at a time. This was the pharmacy that existed before pharmacies opened their doors. This was the medicine that sustained when medicine was denied. This was love made practical, wisdom made tangible, survival made into an inheritance that deserved to be remembered.